how do you know when you've got product market fit? What's the earliest signal that you look for?
Repeatable sales. Your amount of time and energy you're spending to find those sales just collapses.
Hi, and welcome to the Revenue Science Podcast. This is Rich Smith, your host. Today, we're joined by someone who's shaped multiple successful companies and actually influenced my own career. Mehdi Taranshi, co-founder and CEO of KnowledgeNet. Mehdi and I first worked together at Jaya, where he played a key role in shaping the strategy that helped lead to a 9-figure exit to Verisk, which was a strategic acquirer. In this episode, we go deep into the hidden revenue inside your company's relationships, why most CRMs miss it, and how AI-powered relationship intelligence is transforming how CEOs make growth decisions. So without further ado, let's dive into it and welcome Mehdi in. Hey, Mehdi, how are you?
Good. Hi, how are you?
Good. Great to see you again. It's been a little while. I'd like to start where our paths first crossed. So back at Jaya, you, as a board member, you interviewed me, if you recall.
Yes, I did.
When I was doing during the hiring process when I was being hired. And when you think back to that time, what growth challenges were we really walking into?
Sure. I mean, we had quite a bit of growth before us, but we were running into areas where we were tapping into our marketing, but the results weren't that clear. We were trying to get into segments, like vertical segments. If you remember, we were in insurance, but we wanted to get into a few other segments. So those were all kind of like coming together, like what is wrong? And we were trying to figure out how do we solve this problem, like from bottoms up, looking at where things are working, looking at where things are really not delivering, and having someone that come in and like looks at that holistically rather than trying to solve each problem. That's what I remember being the big issue at that point.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I remember as well. At the time that I joined, Jaya was in, good shape, profitable company, but we weren't quite hitting the growth goals that we had in mind that everybody wanted to achieve. But we were able to, and ultimately, Jaya achieved a 9-figure exit to Verisk. I would ask you, what were your earliest signs that Jaya had that kind of potential?
Well, Jaya had a great kind of technology to identify signals, especially early signals where buyers are providing a clear signal as to longevity of that signal, not last minute, not right before they were going to get insurance, but way before that process. So that was really valuable. That was really key for the power and strength of Jaya. What was missing in that equation, and Verisk saw it very well, is that the portfolio, that signal had to be married into data. And if some buyer was looking at some manufacturer, some entity was looking for just signal, sure. But if you're looking for signal and clear, good data, that marriage provided that powerful solution to the market.
Yeah, and that's really what I saw. I mean, I started as a customer of Jaya, actually the predecessor of Jaya, Lead ID, and once I got involved with the company and saw what kind of data that they were gathering, I was one of the people that pushed them to expand their use cases.
Mhm.
to what ultimately became the Activate product and became a big growth engine for the company. So yeah, great story. And I think about a 10-year ride from start to finish, from lead ID to the rebrand to Jaya to ultimately the sale to Verisk. So great story, and I'm thrilled that I got to be a part of it with you and learn from you during that time. I'd love to move over to what you're doing today. Um, Tell us about KnowledgeNet.ai. What problems you solve, what sort of where your customer focus is. What are you focused on today?
Sure. So, just to give you a little bit of my background, coming from um, the imaging world, the world of structured and unstructured data, kind of getting that to be my previous startup, which was a 9-digit exit into Nuance Communication, Voice of Siri. When we got into, hey, let's take a look at the next generation of solutions, it was clearly obvious that AI had a lot to do with how we're going to figure out problems and solve the problems that are manual. So what we focused on is what we call the relationship capital. So think about KnowledgeNet is a network that tries to understand and retain the relationship of relationship capital of a organization. This has to do with who knows who, why are they best connectors, what level of connection do they provide, and be able to actually put that into use, make it actionable. So ability for us then transfer that into a sales funnel activity, transfer that into a customer success, customer management activity. That's where KnowledgeNet captures and then applies the AI technology.
Yeah, and it just strikes me as we're talking about this that this is kind of a unique opportunity on this podcast. We're typically talking to CEOs about their growth challenges and how they've solved them, but you're actually both, right? Serial entrepreneur, serial CEO with successful exit, but now you're building a tool that other CEOs can actually use to connect with their customers and just amp up their marketing. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about relational intelligence. Why is that important for a sales team?
Sure. So what gaps existed in the sales workflow was huge. They were um, what we used to call spray and pray. Try to find out who has a signal, and then all of us go at the same time trying to find that signal, sell to that signal, kind of like try to harvest that signal. This was the old days. The new days is more about deep research, is more about knowing your playbook. Your ICPs are out there, but let's rank them. Let's figure out what relationships do we have with these existing ICPs. Where do those relationships form? They form within your community, within your customers that you're working with. Maybe you have a champion inside the customer that knows somebody else that you're interested in. Hey, that was unknown before AI. Now you can actually investigate and do deep research and capture that relationship intelligence that exists within your organization or within your ecosystem. And the question becomes, what's the most effective way to actually apply that?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's often a lot of mistakes even made in capturing and applying that type of information. And I can walk through some of it in our conversation with you, but this is where we started looking at and saying that relationship is not retained and is really top most valuable asset of an organization. How could we capture those relationships and make them actionable?
Yeah, and For a sales team, you're basically arming them with a big increase in information and tools at their disposal, right? I mean, understanding the relationship that your entire organization has, all of your colleagues have potentially with prospects that are in your ICP, really gives you a leg up in connecting with those prospects, and then you have more background on them that you can use to engage. So I think it's a fantastic tool. Let me ask you, just let's delve into the business a little bit. What, what, if any, were there any key inflection points that told you, that something fundamentally was clicking in your revenue model?
Yeah, so absolutely. So this is where AI gets interesting. In our journey, what we found out is that is kind of a lot of popcorn to sales. Why do I say like popcorn? Because you eat a lot of it, but it doesn't have nutritional value. It really doesn't help you. What we found out is a lot of organizations have a lot of AI capabilities, like little popcorns that they can have, but it's not integrated into. And that's where KnowledgeNet kind of looked at and said, you know what? We actually have to put our AI engine not only to capture the relationship, but how to apply it. Create a playbook. Who's your ICP? What are your challenges getting to that ICP? What are the messages you've used before? And this sales playbook gives you a structure for the AI engine to start deciphering all that data into what is effective actually in execution, right? So this is where we had our inflection point when we learned that a playbook means results if you apply. And if we can team up with our customers, with our clients, and help them in that journey of getting off of delicious popcorn and try to get them into like juicy steaks, they get really excited because they see actually how we have a AI engine. We team them up with a project manager. We put an AI engineer in the background and we start developing that playbook, optimizing it for AI, applying it to their audiences, and then doing an outreach, which is completely designed by their playbook.
I love I think it's a brilliant move. Essentially what you're doing there is you're providing a product, yes, but you're also teaching your customer how to use it and how to be effective with it, and opening their eyes to the possibilities of how to use it. And I think that's one thing that particularly SaaS companies get wrong all the time is they don't put enough emphasis into the onboarding of a new customer. And the first, you have about maybe 30 days, at the outmost, maybe 90 days to get a customer actually using and having some success and traction in your product, or they're not going to renew. And I think so that's I think a brilliant move on your part is, and I believe we talked early on and you were thinking about creating the playbook. Now you've actually created it, which I think is fantastic. And I'm sure that's having a big impact on, on your sales and on, repeats and renewals and all of that.
Can I say something here, if I may? This journey has not been without a ton of kind of like falling down and then figuring out what went wrong. If we take a look at how sales is structured in B2B and differences in B2C, there are huge differences. As you well know, your audience, your definition of what you're going with. So immediately there was a huge separation of our path. If it is B2C, I'm like sitting back and saying, okay, we can do it, but it's going to take a lot more. to actually reach those consumers. If it is B2B, boom, I have a playbook, I have a way, I have a message, I have obstacle, definitions are clear, right? The second area is really, who are the decision makers? Who are the influencers? The sales teams today always go to the top. The highest ranking is my best buddy. And if I go to the highest ranking, I'm going to make that sale. Mistake. You got to work your way 2 or 3 levels down. How do you do that without AI? AI needs to define, okay, this is the organization. These are the levels down. These are really the influencers who's got the ear of the decision maker. How do I get there? How do I reach them, right? Ability for an AI engine to execute on massive scale in order to reach these particular targets, right? Even with that level of precision, I tell you, there are plenty of broken up AI engines on this journey that I have seen, because junk in, junk out. You get all this data, but you're getting it from external sources. And if you're getting signals from external sources, but you're not able to kind of home in on what you're trying to deliver, you're going to fall apart. The advantage that KnowledgeNet had was actually, it was the internal brain. It read years of inbox conversations in order to calculate what works, what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that internal brain was actually giving it this advantage, and be able to make that journey easier for the sales teams.
Yeah, and I think, if I can just paraphrase a little bit, when I've been both a B2B and a B2C CMO, and you're totally right. There's a vast difference between the two. And what I often talk to sales teams about in the B2B world is, on every deal, you've got to have at least 3 individuals, 3 roles, if you will. It's probably a better way to put it. 3 roles. You got to have a decision maker. And that's usually what the sales teams are always focused on, is the decision maker. Very important to have a decision maker as part of the deal, but not necessarily where you start. Then you have product users, who are the people that are going to be in the trenches, hands-on keys, using your product day in, day out. Important to have at least one, hopefully more, of those involved in the deal conversation. But the third role is the champion. The champion is the person who really cares about getting this done, right? They're the ones that feel the most benefit from whatever product or service it is you're selling. And it sounds to me, don't let me put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like, you're trying to track the code at KnowledgeNet and how to get people connected with champions. The decision makers are kind of obvious. I mean, you can look at a company org chart, or, pull Zoom info or whatever. You can get the name of the CEO and the C-suite. And those are all important decision makers, but they're not necessarily your product champion.
Right. And the product champion has certain attributes. They are familiar with AI. They love to be trailblazers in their job, in introducing, in adopting new technology. But now everybody is having those conversations, and there are certain people that are really early adopters that can help you drive those conversations within a company.
If you had to choose today, is your momentum mainly coming from product market fit, or people and culture, or systems and processes? Which of those 3 do you think is really helping you drive forward today?
I mean, we achieved product market fit about a year ago. Just to give you an example, last year we had a 300% growth, and we could feel it a year ago that this is coming. I think the ability to recognize that systems and processes are broken is key, but that has to do with the culture. You have certain people that are organizations that are stuck in their kind of CRM world, so to speak. They're rigid. This is supposed to happen. They're not getting results, and they're seeing that the old method is not working, but they're not flexible to change. I think the combination of culture, somebody that has ability to actually see the system and processes and how the AI really helps automate these manual operations is key. So a lot of manual processes help these individuals in this company work better together because it freed them. I'm not saying they dropped all of those people out. They actually have time to work better together now because a lot of that manual time taking tasks are done through our AI engine.
Right. Right. Yeah. So let's dig into product market fit for a second, because that's a buzzword that everybody loves to talk about, and every time I hear an investor pitch, it's like, oh, we've got product market fit. But you've actually done it across several companies. So what would you say? Like, how do you know when you've got product market fit? What's the earliest signal that you look for?
Repeatable sales. Your amount of time and energy you're spending to find those sales just collapses. And you literally walk in, you have the right combination of product and services and know-how, and you've identified the right individuals that care about. And literally your sales cycle goes from weeks or months to days or hours. To me, that's the clearest indication. That's one indication that, hey, this just turned the corner.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a wonderful definition. It's one of the best I've ever heard. And I think from a sales cycle perspective, I'm a little bit biased as I'm a marketing person, but I believe that part of product market fit is working out how are you taking what's your go to market. Like, your go to market is part of that process, right? You could have a great product, but if you're not explaining it properly, if you're not messaging in a way that's, really getting to the pain points that your ideal customer is trying to solve, you're not gonna get that kind of traction. But I love the definition of, seeing the sales cycle start to collapse and get tighter and get acceleration in your pipeline is a fantastic definition
Yeah, yeah,
of product.
100%. And that go-to-market messaging and clarity has a lot to do with ability for sales teams to walk into that meeting and say, they already got it. I don't have to go through and give them, A to Z of what's they see the impact. They know what they're meeting, what they're trying to. And one of the things I'm interested now, and I'm focusing on it, is outcome as a service.
Mm.
All of this that's happening is fantastic, but our customers are looking for outcome. And how do we turn this around by saying, okay, we got AI that works 24/7. How do we provide that tied directly to an outcome?
Hmm.
That's a big challenge.
Yeah, and what you're doing there is you're trying to align, your incentives with your customers' incentives at the same time, and take away that fear of, hey, I'm going to spend a bunch of money on this thing, and I don't know whether it's going to work or not. And I think you're seeing that. I think we're seeing that as an industry more and more with, some SaaS companies are starting to move that direction with their pricing, moving more towards, hey, if we don't generate an outcome for you, you don't pay for the AI credits or the usage on the platform. And I think that's why, right? It removes some friction from the sales process, but also holds you accountable to making sure you're actually delivering results that your customers care about, which ultimately is going to lead to everybody's success, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the key there is to clarity around outcome. A lot of companies are trying to jump into my outcome is number of meetings, number of deals that I close, or X that is. I think there is a process that's being improved by AI, and in this process, there is ton of outcomes that, regardless, as you go through and reach those ultimate outcome, you're improving the process. You're getting better ranking of your ICP. You're getting a playbook, which is AI enabled. You're getting a direct messaging that is dynamic and is driven by AI. And you're testing faster to see which message is working. So just to make sure that we are kind of defining these outcomes as a team with our client. Because once we have this right, the ultimate outcome, deal is closed, is going to be reached, right? So
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So next question, and I want to get into a little bit about, you're both a board member and a CEO. Imagine that I'm one of, CMO of one of your companies, one of your client companies, and I'm interested in purchasing KnowledgeNet, but I've got to walk into my CEO's office. I've got to walk into the boardroom and explain why we need this. Why is relationship intelligence important? What am I saying to that audience?
one is it's a hard fact that the old methods are not delivering results. That has been established, that has been published. That's kind of like the wind behind the CMO that goes in there says, I am going to try this new AI thing, KnowledgeNet, for example. In this case. That's a wind you need to establish, because the second is really a silent capital that we are not pulling in. Your team's network, your customers' network, deep research into the marketing influencers, deep research into groups and organizations that are aligning with your product. So think about scale if you're going into that meeting. What AI is giving you is scaling all your dreams, ability for you to say, that SAP group, I can now research them and find out who is following, who is liking, who is really a SAP customer, and be able to turn that around and say, now my marketing is focused on not only companies that have SAP, but companies that are talking about SAP supply chain issues. Now, the scale that you can implement as a CMO walking in there is your biggest weapon. Because you didn't have this tool before called KnowledgeNet that you had to actually put huge manpower in order to tap into any one of these resources. And you had to prioritize them, throw half of them away and say, I'm going to choose and I'm going to put my reputation online that this is the right choice. Now you have the scaling capability. You can say, I can take 10,000 ICPs in 5 regions, and in a week, I'm going to have them all ranked. And I'm going to find those few signals that allows me to walk in and say, I'm the expert. You have this problem. I need to sell.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And I think most organizations really underestimate the value of the weaker ties that they have into a prospect organization. How do you quantify that in a way that resonates with the boardroom or the executive team?
So it's so just to be sure, I'm focusing on these relationships that are hidden, are focused on, like, for example, you have a great customer, a champion. The champion's relationships are important to you, but you have no access to that champion's relationship. Now you do. Now you have the capability of asking that champion, do you know these three companies? Can you put a warm introduction for me? That capability was hidden before. Now it's available to all your team members, not just your customer success team who's working and sitting with that customer. You can have your sales team tap the customer success team on the shoulder and say, hey, you know that guy you talk to every week and he's our champion in that large enterprise company? Could you ask for an introduction? Could you see if they know this other company? Boom, right? That warm introduction works 80% of the time. So there are hidden relationships. We have, for example, even talking to the board, tapping into your board members, board advisors, and being able to say, there is a relationship here. Could we really talk about it? Because KnowledgeNet actually goes across multiple platforms and harvests, including LinkedIn, including your email, including the meetings, including public databases, and puts all the map together graphically for you to start finding things you didn't.
Yeah, I think that's, really key. It's an overused phrase that, people don't buy from companies, people buy from people. But there's so much truth to that. And, I think an easy, one way to explain it, what you do to a CEO or a board is just simply ask them, if you needed a knee surgery, what would you do? Would you just walk into the whatever hospitals nearby and take whatever doctor they give you? Or would you go ask your golf buddy who got a knee replacement last year, who did they go to? Right. And that's really the kind of the essence of relationship intelligence, is getting to the point where you have deep knowledge and understanding of the way your organization is already connected to the organization that you're trying to break into, and being able to leverage those relationships in a high volume, scalable way. It's beyond just trying to work your natural network. And if you can then bring, yeah, we're all connected to lots of people. And if I look at who I'm connected to, who you're connected to, who everyone it's exponential growth.
Yeah, 100%. And part of this, which becomes really interesting, is like the cases we have been experiencing. We are looking for C-suite connections at $500 million and above companies. You can imagine these folks are busy. They got the Chinese wall around them of assistants and so on. You can't just email them and expect a conversation, right? This particular case was interesting because within their network and their advisors of this particular organization, we found an ex-CEO who has been in a company whose board member now is a board member of this targeted company. So within that single interaction, we kind of said, oh, you need to talk to Joe. And now you're talking to the C-suite of a $500 million company about your product. Because Joe's introduction was, board member to board member, CEO to board member, X relationship, just like the knee surgery example you gave. It's just like, yeah, definitely. Let me talk to you.
Yeah, and exposing those kinds of connections that are not obvious, right? You could probably have figured it out if you went to LinkedIn and you scrolled through, their entire background and history and made the connection. But to have it served up, within a platform where it's readily available and scalable, and you're exposing those connections, it is just so much more powerful. And yeah.
We all have been in LinkedIn trying to figure out who's connected to who. And after, I don't know, half an hour, I give up. I kind of go, I don't know.
Yeah,
Second is
because
that
it's all
that
linear.
relationship,
Like when you look at it in LinkedIn, it's all
yeah,
linear, right? And what you're doing is actually creating like a
yeah, of the
exponential
whole.
neural network map. I mean, I remember
Exactly.
looking at, some of your connection maps, and it literally looks like you're replicating a human brain, right, with the nodes and
Exactly.
all the various connections. It's fascinating to see. I wonder if you could possibly share maybe an experiment that you did from a marketing or sales perspective that had surprising results, either good or bad, but something that really you tried it and what happened surprised you.
Yeah, sure. So in particular, we've been kind of focused on taking what we call AI Engage and trying to experiment with it because we are trying to open up different doors. And it's really the surprise comes from uh, understanding of what existing individuals tell us and what the data is telling us. Because when we design a playbook, of course, the first motion into that is to sit down with a group of sales leaders and say, what are your problems? What are your value props? Who are you trying to get? And then what we find out looking inside this brain neural network, you kind of go, they're talking to the wrong people because all the customers that they have won actually says that the individuals they are in touch with and they have sold to or they are working with are in this type of organization in that client. So what they have been, and one of the surprises we have found is that on the first level of interview, on the first engagement of describing how and where we should focus, conflicts sometimes with looking back at existing successful customer conversations and then extracting that data from there, comparing the two, we kind of go, oh, this is not where you're going to be most successful. Your topmost clients are behaving this way. These messages are different than this. And then they all kind of go, oh yeah, you're right. Let's run an experiment and try this method that you've seen work. And lo and behold, yeah, things are different than actual or the theory of where. Now, where that is really interesting is where company is trying to change direction. So what is in the past is less relevant to where we're trying to go. And this is where we have to run experiments in terms of, okay, how is these two areas related to each other? Are the decision makers related to each other? Is there any relationship that we can harvest from your past into this new area you're going to? And some of those are really interesting because ability for you to harvest that knowledge, but apply it into a new product or new introduction or new region is another way of looking at how KnowledgeNet can help.
So when you bring KnowledgeNet into a new customer, do you have a sense for what percentage of their um, warm paths or advocates or relationship connections are invisible to their own CRM?
I hate to say it, but it's almost 100%. It's, I mean, To all my CRM friends, they've gone to be a database. They've gone to be a logging and recording type
And now
of.
you integrate with something like 20 some CRMs as
Yeah, we
well.
do. And we try to kind of pull all that together and kind of create a map for them that's not just CRM, but it's really their everyday conversations, their financial information. It's kind of like puts a skin on top of all that and says this is what it looks like, right? So um, definitely what I would say is the knowledge that is inside CRM, if you have spent and kept it clean, we can use it, but it's not complete. And it's something that a lot of companies miss. This relationship intelligence, what 10 people who joined the organization a year ago and they're gone, I can maintain that relationship. That is forgotten inside the CRM. It's there, but it's not like really popping at you and saying, hey, this is the difference. I think that's really where our edge over surfacing information shows well.
Yeah, yeah, and really just the network effects of what you're doing as opposed to the old way of, working within your CRM and within LinkedIn, et cetera, which is very, one point to one point to one point and very linear. You're actually bringing, an exponential view to how a organization can, get the attention of and get into one of their prospects. I'm curious, what kinds of systems or rituals have you found to be most effective to keep your sales and marketing and finance teams all aligned?
So, you mean inside our clients, right?
Yes. Well, no, inside KnowledgeNet,
I mean
inside
inside
your
the
own
yeah.
organization. Yeah.
So part of what we have to do is to constantly reevaluate and constantly have this kind of review session of you may remember in Jornaya we worked together with the team to kind of have this monthly and quarterly kind of check in, make sure we are objective driven, and sort of kind of keep the objectives kind of on the forefront. Don't get distracted. Let's go back, check in together. Let's see what we learned, and do a ton of after action reviews. We are trying to do this. Where are we now? Where did we think we're going to? What just happened? And kind of that is really the critical process that allows our organization to maintain that cadence of here's where we're going. Are we really taking the right steps going there? I think a big part of like bringing the finance part and the operation side and the sales side together is in the early planning and the vision of the company. I know everybody kind of talks about vision as being, it's one statement on a page. I believe that vision is kind of the guidance of messaging, the guidance of how and what problems are we able to solve. Capturing the relationship capital of a corporation is our mission that turns into actually what we need to talk about to our client. Is that important to our client? So even though these organizations are all constantly on day-to-day working and executing, and there's a lot of feedback scenario, it has to tie to a mission and to a vision statement. And I think that those are really what keeps the company and the direction together.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, when I work with a client on, retooling their brand messaging, because they'll often, bring me in to say, well, we have a problem with our messaging. We don't have good messaging. I go back to vision and mission as a starting point because I think that's got to be part of, your overall brand messaging and getting that right. And honestly, a lot of times I see visions and missions, expressed in terms of like, well, what do we want to do as an organization, right? As opposed to what is it that we're trying to accomplish for our customers? How are we helping people to do something better? How are we creating? It really gets to the essence of how do we create value? And I think that's got to be just integral into your vision, mission, your brand promise, your entire messaging structure. Starts there in my mind.
100%, 100%. And it's so critical to be able to say what's valuable to our client. How is that reflected in our mission?
Right. Because if it's not reflected in your mission, guess what? You need a new mission because
Yeah.
you're not going to succeed with that.
It's a huge disconnect. Yeah.
It's totally disconnected. Because customers don't pay you for, what you want to do. They pay you for what you can do for them. And it's just the way the world works.
One thing I want to add in that, just you asked about, this is a very interesting kind of and close to my heart, is as you are executing as a CEO, there's a ton of situations where things will fail, and you should expect it to fail. And in this journey, we've had clients that we thought they're going to be super successful, only to go in there and find out their data didn't really match, their playbook didn't match, and then ultimately they come out disappointed. We are disappointed because we feel we are a partner with our client. We're not separate. We're not selling you something. We're trying to be successful together. The key is to be able to learn from the points. All this mission and what we do is a guidance, but the culture within the team should be, we're going to help each other get up one more time and let's figure this out. What went wrong? What did not work? And anybody who says otherwise, I think they're, kind of like not getting it, or they're running something that is completely different than what the people love to see. And I see when people do engage in feedback and they feel everybody cares about analyzing, getting the scenarios that didn't work, they feel everybody cares. Two things matters in a team: trust and commitment. I trust that you're going to do something for me, and I commit to you that this is going to happen. And if these trust and commitment work, boom, your teams start working together.
Yeah, and I think, going back to, what you described as your process that you use to keep sales and marketing and finance aligned, same one we used at Jaya. You were instrumental in bringing that to Jaya, kind of the thought leader that brought that into that organization. It helps to foster that sense of trust and commitment amongst your executive team. And there's a magic that happens when you reach that point and you get to the point where your executive team is not worried about their own turf or their own territory. They're really aligned with the objectives of the organization and they're backing each other up. They get to the point where they realize, as a marketing person, I'm not going to be successful if sales isn't successful, if customer success isn't successful, if HR isn't successful, if finance isn't successful. I need all of those. We got to be firing on all cylinders because this is not easy stuff. Scaling a company is not easy stuff. It takes a team, and it takes a team being aligned and engaged and committed to each other to make it happen. So I certainly applaud you for doing it yet again.
You've been part of this multiple times, and you've been part of this with me in Jaya. That moment is actually, the moment that everybody is looking for. And every time you have it's kind of like a basketball team that if one of the team members is not performing well, the whole team doesn't perform well. And if you get all the right players on the court one day, it's like magic, right? It's just like your scoring rate goes up, your just everything works. And I think that's similar to the moment that all the executives are saying, okay, we're on the same page. We know that these are the objectives. We've been here before, done this, made our mistakes. We know how to deal with these mistakes, and we know each other. We trust each other, right?
Yeah. And by the way, if you're looking for an exit for your company or you're just looking to raise capital, investors can spot it a mile away. It's one of the, like, you're an investor, I'm an investor. One of the first things we look at is how aligned is this management team? Are they all committed and aligned on the same objectives? If you're getting a different story from different people, that's a big red flag. Time to stay away, right? I'm curious. So, I'm going to try to bring this to a close. It's been a fantastic conversation. So I'm going to curious about some questions that I think might be really interesting to some of our listeners. What emerging technology will most reshape B2B, revenue generation in the next 3 to 5 years? Maybe actually even shorten that because things are changing so fast. Let's say in the next 3 years.
There are a ton of creative AI that's hitting and coming on board. The way that the creative side of the business used to work, where you had to describe something and then go through iterations and so on, is just changing so fast. So I think this is going to be an area to watch, where we're going to see these larger engine kind of gobble up these smaller content generation type of graphical content generation engines and plug them into the right spots. So now you can express yourself. You're not just getting, you are the head of marketing. Somebody is head of the CEO, and they want to be able to clearly express something in one slide, one graph. That has been a challenge and is coming in the next few years very, very quickly. Another area that I think is going to be very interesting is collaboration and marriage of AI and collaboration together. So ability for the walls to break between the knowledge, the people collaboration, and the results, outcomes. I think these three things are going to come together. What do I mean by that? Meaning, if you collaborate more knowledge is created, knowledge is retained, and then results into an outcome. These three things are separated right now. You have a conversation collaboration. There is a wall between you and other people who need that knowledge, and there's a wall between that and the outcome you're trying to drive. And these three things are now collapsing together. So this collaborative AI is, whether it's verticalized or general, I think is going to be an interesting area to watch as well.
Yeah, and even collaboration between different AI tools as well. I'm sure you're already doing a bit of that, at KnowledgeNet. I know I am as well, but getting different AI tools to integrate and work together just really makes the whole process far more powerful. So let me I do want to be respectful of your time and bring this amazing conversation to a close. So I'm going to close with just some lightning round questions, right? So what is your favorite leadership or growth book?
One that I read a long time ago, and Hard Thing About Hard Things. It was amazing because it gave me a journey of a startup all the way to becoming really, huge. And it touched on people, touched on culture, and in a storytelling fashion. So yes, that's I would.
Yeah, that's a fabulous book. If any of your listeners have not read that one, put that one on your reading list for sure. What would you say is the most underrated tool in your tech stack?
In a way, we have designed a platform where you can plug in different AIs and they magically talk to each other. So you're not really trying to be very rigid about this is the AI, this is the input, this is the output. You can actually design a workflow of AI set of capabilities and tailor that to your particular process you're going through. So being a platform where AI agents can plug in together and then reach out to other AIs which are outside of R and then pull that back into, it's really amazing. That's an area where I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I can guess there are lots of additional integrations on the KnowledgeNet product roadmap.
Yes.
Well, hey, Mehdi, thank you so much for joining us today. If anyone wants to learn more about KnowledgeNet or connect with you, where should they go?
KnowledgeNet.ai, my name, Mehdi Taranshi at KnowledgeNet.ai. I would love to hear about the perspective of folks listening in.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Mehdi. I really, really appreciate your time today. It's been a great conversation, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you so much. I loved it.